synthwave theme for this afternoon's episode of the Roundtable, and that's what we call a foreshadowing in the business here. Welcome to the Roundtable, your source for all things nerd and Stranger Things and 80s synthwave talk, and of course, all of our best friends here from Lux Digital Church, starting with the one and only The Lift. Pastor Mark, how you doing today, man?
What's up, guys? It's good to see you. Welcome into the stream, everybody. I'm actually literally pulling it up right now. Oh my gosh, there's so many people in the stream already. Bougie here. We got the Josh Hembeck, who I was just hanging out with. Templar 10 here in the stream. Mackenzie, will there be a Stranger Things spoilers? Oh, good question. We just started season 3 last night.
Here, I'll give a little bit of warning once we get there, Mackenzie, because I'm gonna follow kind of the same pattern you did. I just started season 4. Well, I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in. So, with all that being said, just hang out with us for a little bit, and we'll give all of the spoiler warnings and all that stuff. Echo should be gone right now, is it, guys?
Yeah, I think so. It's gone for me now.
Dope. Thanks. Awesome. And if in the chat everything else is going wrong, just point it out and call us idiots. Right below him is Navlis, who I uniquely timed while he was taking a sip of his Yeti. Nav, what's good?
Perfect.
What's good in Central America, man?
Oh man, Central America. That's okay. I don't know about that, but
Central U.S. How's that?
Sometimes it feels like that in East Tennessee, but yeah. But I'm doing good. Busy week getting ready for camp, taking the students to camp. So yeah, we're actually going into Kentucky for camp, which is fun.
Oh, is it a Christian camp? You guys doing like ropes course type stuff?
We're doing our own camp this year. It'll be the last year we do our own camp for a little bit. But we rented a lake house on a place called Land Between the Lakes. You can look that up in Kentucky. It's like a pretty cool area. It's about 2 hours north of Nashville. Best way to put it. And so just find Nashville on the map, go 2 hours north. That's where we're going to be in a little town called Cadiz, Kentucky. So
Cadiz, I like it.
Yeah.
It's Cadiz. Yeah. Thank you, Cadiz.
Cadiz.
They have to, Cadiz.
Cadiz.
Barcelona.
That's how it's
and next to him, our good buddy Templar 10. Templar, I can't tell if he's praying or just looking at his phone. Templar, how's everything going? How's everything shaking for you? There we go.
How's everything shaking?
Yeah, how's it shaking?
All right, doing okay today. So got a family get together later today, so that should be fun.
Yeah, there was a warning in our Discord, our private little Discord chat we had, that you might be coming from a cottage. Are you still going to a cottage?
I will be. I was gonna go yesterday, but then because of this family thing, it's in town, so I'm gonna go, and then I'll be going to the cottage tomorrow or Sunday, most likely.
Cool. And what is it like? Is it an old school, like everything built out of Lincoln logs looking things, or is it kind of like a condo?
It's not like a log cabin. It's not that. It's a little more updated than that. But my grandfather built it. My dad updated it a few years ago. It's about an 8-hour drive from here, so it's a bit of a jaunt on a lake, but it's a nice family getaway. So.
I dig it. That's awesome. So here on the Roundtable, we like to, like I said at the very beginning of this, we like to talk nerd stuff. Today, we are picking out a couple of topics that we really wanted to dive into. One of them being Stranger Things, because that is honestly taking over the world right now in a good way. And then we're actually going to get into a topic that we're going to have a conversation about, and we want to talk with everybody in the chat as well. Kind of how to deal with those messy people in your lives, how to deal with the people that need a little bit more grace, how to respond as a Christian, but also just how to be a good person back. So we'll get into a conversation about that a little bit. Before we do, I want to kick things off, and we're going to just go around the horn here. Mark, what have you been playing, watching, listening to, consuming in nerd culture?
Yeah, man. Well, my wife and I, we just watched the Making of Moon Knight thing that they released on Disney Plus the other night. So that was actually pretty intriguing and cool. Some of our critiques that we talked about with Moon Knight still stand, but I did really enjoy to be honest with you, some of the Disney shows, Marvel shows, I've enjoyed more like the behind the scenes documentary that comes out a couple weeks after than the whole show itself.
Yeah.
Because I just find it intriguing about there's all of these great lengths that Disney goes to to like, we're doing like a theme in Egypt. So we want a lot of people who are Middle Eastern who are working on the show and on the set. And they go to great lengths to do certain things. Not always go to great lengths to write great stories, but they do go to great lengths to do some things right. And they're really intriguing. As far as what I've been playing, there's been two things. I really got into this game called Tales of Tribute, which is it is a card game that came into the Elder Scrolls Online, which whenever they announced it, I was very unhappy with it because I played, avidly podcasted about, made content for Bethesda's other card game that has since been put in retirement and is no longer really being played, the Elder Scrolls Legends. I was ticked off they were putting a card game in my MMO when they could have just kept my card game originally. But this is a very different game. It's this really fun sort of competitive deck builder, which is completely different. And if you come from a tabletop gaming perspective and not just a card gaming perspective, you'll have an understanding of what a deck builder is. It's been really, really fun to play. I played it a ton on stream today. But the thing I'm most excited about in nerd culture right now is that today, Skyrim Special Edition has a mod that is either released or releasing that allows you to play up to 8-player multiplayer almost entirely fully synced in Skyrim, which did get me to buy Skyrim for the 5th time. Now once for Xbox 360, once for Xbox One, Special Edition for Xbox One, the Switch, and now Anniversary Edition for the PC. So I've never played Skyrim on PC before, and I'm going to be adventuring back into Skyrim with a close buddy of mine who's going to be playing sort of a necromancer, and I'm going to be playing a sword and board warrior. But the cool part is like we're going to get to adventure through that on like master mode because we figure, hike up the difficulty. We've both played the game a lot throughout the years. Hike up the difficulty because we're playing together and we can sort of team up and strategize. So pretty pumped for that, honestly. Really looking forward to exploring that with him a little bit over the weekend or some point next week. He's like, bro, if this mod actually works, I am legit taking a day off of work. So you should too. And I'm like, okay, like I'll full send it. Like, let's go. I think that's great. So we're planning on like clearing our schedules for a day and just no light thing for like 15 hours Skyrim co-op. And so, yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that. Look at that crew, Private Ryan says. Hey, Private Ryan, good to see you. Private Ryan is currently driving on his way to Hilton Head right now.
Ooh.
And tuning in through the car. So
hopefully
yeah,
legally.
no, it's great. So yes, I don't believe he's driving. I hope he's not driving anyway. So I'm personally really excited about the Skyrim mod. We'll see how it works. I looked up a bunch of stuff. This team had put out a mod before called Skyrim Together that was pretty bad. Just not a lot was synced together. Turning a multiplayer game single player game into a multiplayer game is evidently hard. I was just like, well, just put my character in there like I'm an MMO. But as it turns out, when you don't design your game to be an MMO, it's not easy to make it into one. But they've synced spells and creatures and questing, and like they've basically gone through and synced almost every single aspect of the game to one another, with the exception of weather. And so it's like 90%, 99% there. I'm super pumped to try it out. So theoretically, like late tonight.
Weather effects weren't anything in Skyrim, though. I mean, you didn't have to worry about like lightning or snow or anything, did you? I can't remember.
The only thing that you have to worry about weather effect wise now is if you have Anniversary Edition, there is a Creation Club survival pack that basically makes you have to eat, drink, and stay warm. And the more wet your character is, the more quickly you get cold. So if you're in cold conditions after going through water or being in the rain, you have to find a way to get into sunlight or by a fire to dry yourself out. Otherwise, you'll soak your clothes and lose your warmth rating on your clothing. So depending on how much Creation Club stuff is synced, I don't know. But if you buy Anniversary Edition, which it was on sale until yesterday for like $20, comes with everything that came out in sort of like the Creation Club packs, which is literally it's like 500 unique items and quests. And I've never done any of that stuff before except survival mode, which I downloaded right when it came out, and probably paid for it back then. So I got it now again. So we're going to be exploring a lot of that. Pretty pumped about it. Yeah, that's like this weekend. That's my nerd stuff, bro.
Are you gonna stream it next week? Because I'm highly interested. I have it on Game Pass, of course. I've bought it 3 times on 3 different platforms. I can't do it again. I bought it 3 times at $60 a piece. So do the math on how much I've actually spent on Skyrim. Yeah. There's that.
It doesn't feel good.
No, it does not feel good. And so I can't, but I kind of can at $20, maybe even at $30. But it's on Game Pass, and you can still mod. Yeah, you can still mod on Game Pass. Yep. It's just you got to go through a couple of different channels. So if it works, like I'm 100% in.
Yeah, you can totally boot up and mod. Nav and Templar, have either of you guys gotten into Skyrim? Were you ever like, I like no life Skyrim before?
I played it. I mean, I beat it, like beat the campaign years and years ago, like around the time when it came out or shortly thereafter on PC, but I've never gone back to it and returned. I don't have a ton of interest.
I played it with my kids, like one of the playthroughs. I played with my kids, and like I let them make all the decisions. It was great. This is a parenting hack, by the way. For anyone out there that has young kids and still wants to play video games, play a video game with them, but don't let them touch the controller, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to screw it up. And then just let them make the decisions, and everything else is dope. And that way you're just like, I did that with No Man's Sky. I did it with Skyrim. I did it with the Spider-Man game. I did it with a couple others too. Horizon Zero Dawn did that. Like, I played the game. They just made all the decisions. It was awesome. Sorry, I cut you off, Nev.
No, it's all good. I played Oblivion, Morrowind, and Skyrim, but I haven't bought them multiple times. Have I? Wait.
Yep.
Skyrim's the tricky one.
Yep.
I see. Yeah, 360. I had it. Did I also have it on the PS4? I don't know. I have to go check. So I might have bought that twice.
Yep.
Might have.
Yep. This is the trap.
They
this
get
is how it works.
They get you.
Yep. This is you're going down the path.
Why release Elder Scrolls 6?
Yep. Exactly.
Why release it when they can sell it for 5 more years?
Exactly. And like if they can surreptitiously just start paying modders to like continue to release games for assets that are 10 years old, and they're just basically making a mint. Like, how many people bought that $20 anniversary edition? Probably another 200,000 people bought it.
Yeah, I was going to say I do have it downloaded on Game Pass, so I guess technically that's the 3rd time.
You're welcome.
There you go.
This is great.
There you go.
Nav, what have you been playing, watching, consuming in nerd culture?
Let's see here. Been playing Mass Effect, chipping away at that. I'm on Mass Effect 2. Beat the first one. So I think I talked about it a little bit. I got Garrus, Kasumi. I'm working on my 5th crew member. So I have all the DLC that comes with the trilogy edition one that EA released. So more content. So I'm just going through getting all the characters, and we'll do their loyalty missions after that. And so I've been playing that. It's been fun. Then I've been playing Neon White still. That game, incredible, amazing. The platforming in it. If you how to describe it, if you ever play, it's like speed running Doom Eternal, but better. I don't know. It's real fun. It's my game of the year so far. It's my game of the year. It's the best game I've played this year. So, and I've played. I've been in about 3 or 4 games this year, and I played several others because of Game Pass. But this one is hands down just kind of like, it's on the Switch. It's great. You can pick it up, put it down quickly if you need to. You need to go. It's perfect and portable. So get it. Neon White. It's awesome. If you like a little bit of platforming, puzzles, figure out. I think it's one of the most unique games I played since I played Portal. Put it that way.
That's high praise. I picked it up on PC, and I played about 20 minutes of it, and I felt very old because like I was playing mouse and keyboard, and I'm coming from like Doom 2016 was one of my jams. I just love that thing, and like Quake 3 particular, Unreal Tournament. Like I was a Twitch gamer for a while. It was too much. It was like maybe my monitor was too big. Like I've got a 27-inch 4K monitor here. Maybe it's just too big, and maybe it was just too much happening. But like I had to just like, whoa, maybe I'm getting motion sick here. So that was bad.
Yeah, I I played it on the Switch portable. I haven't done it on a big screen, so I can't say that. But like portably, I haven't. I can't do VR like VR a lot because motion sickness. If it's like a real fast thing, but this right here, I haven't had an issue. So maybe it's just the screens. I don't know.
Maybe I'm just getting
But
old.
that's it. That's all I've been playing so far. I've been really busy this past couple weeks, but that's
Cool.
it.
Cool. Templar, what have you been playing? Watching, listening to, all the things.
So a few things recently. I mean, since our last episode, I picked up a Quest 2 VR headset. So I've been getting into some of that. Some of the standard stuff like Beat Saber. But then I've been trying to get into some other things. I got a few fitness apps. And then I picked up the Medal of Honor, which has been pretty fun. That was made by Respawn, the company that did Apex. So that's been okay. And then I just recently picked up Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, it's called. It's a VR.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So I just started that, but we'll see. So I've been trying to get into that. Outside of VR, I picked up a game on Steam called Ground Branch, which is like a tactical. It's like a tactical shooter where you play. Ground Branch is like sort of CIA special forces, so you do hostage rescue, like street clearing stuff. There's a bunch of different ones. It's in early access, but I've been enjoying it. I like this sort of tactical shooter feel.
It feels like the original Rainbow Six. That's what it looks like.
Maybe, yeah. It's sort of. It might be sort of similar.
Actually, the caption is the caption is from one of the developers behind the original Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon games. Yeah, okay, there you go.
Oh, well, there it is. But they try to make it more realistic, similar to Ready or Not, with like the gunplay and like clearing, and you can play together. I think up to 8, maybe 8 people or something like that. So I've been enjoying that. And then in terms of stuff I've been watching, obviously I was binging Stranger Things because we talked about having to talk. We decided we were going to do season 4, and I had never watched any of Stranger Things, so I had to watch all of it, or I watched all of it since we decided that. So I was binging that. I watched the show on Prime Video called The Terminal List with Chris Pratt, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the reviews for it weren't great, but I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it. It's sort of an established trope of the like cop / special forces guy gets kind of screwed over by whoever in charge, and then he has to uncover the conspiracy for what's going on. I feel like that's a fairly established trope in movies and TV, but it's pretty well executed. I like Chris Pratt, and the action in it's pretty good. So yeah, I would recommend that if someone's watching. Sorry?
Is it a series or a movie?
It's a series. It's 8 episodes. I think 8 episodes.
Okay.
Cool. On Amazon, on Prime Video.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
It's pretty good.
At some point,
Yeah, it's got Taylor Kitsch and Chris Pratt.
and Constance Wu and LaMonica Garrett. At some point, I want us to do a ranking of the streaming services because I think Amazon is actually making a push to be like the number 3 right now, in my opinion, number 3 or number 4. And it's
okay.
I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. We'll do that. We'll save that. We don't have to do that now. That's a different episode. I'll put that in the Discord. And we can talk about
That's
that.
Interesting.
Because there's like The Boys, Terminal List. I'm a huge fan of Maisel on Amazon Prime. There's a couple other things that have come out. Even the Reacher stuff. It feels
Reacher was good.
and it feels a little bit like CBS, where you kind of know what you're going to get in everything, but like it's solid. You're always going to get a solid like 7 out of 10. I mean, Boys was like 9 out of 10, but you're going to get a solid 7 out of 10 in everything. Whereas like Netflix is just putting out just brick houses of crap most of the time, outside of like Stranger Things and maybe 2 or 3 other things. Disney Plus just okay. Anyway, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about streaming services later.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a fun conversation. I finished The Boys season 3 yesterday. I was a little disappointed by the finale, to be honest. It's still a great show, and I
Yep.
really like it. But the final episode of the season, at least to me, was a little disappointing. But
How's
overall,
I was gonna say how's Jensen Ackles? I think that's his name. He got
he's
introduced in
good in
season
it.
3.
Yeah, he
Okay,
plays Soldier Boy.
I
In
like
it.
him
He's
as an
good.
actor. So
Yep.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
haven't
mean,
seen. I'm about to watch.
he plays a character you're not supposed to like. So he
That's
plays
fine.
kind of like an old timey, sort of like a racist version of Captain America. If Captain America was historically accurate to like perceptions of the time, like
Captain
that's sort of
KKK.
his. That's like his character basically. And he does a great job with it. So hey.
Captain KKK.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's not wrong. Cool. Anything else?
No, that's plenty. I mean, that's the majority of it.
Cool. I've been diving a lot into, and I talked about this on Discord a little bit. If you are not part of our Discord and you are listening or watching the roundtable, jump in. We'll do !Discord in a second into the chat. Come be part of our family on Discord. I was talking about this a little bit in our currently playing channel, and was talking about the fact that for whatever reason, Fire Emblem has its hooks back in me. Fire Emblem Three Houses, and it was because the Three Hopes or whatever the new Musu game came out, the new Dynasty Warriors alike came out about Fire Emblem, and like I've never been a Fire Emblem guy. I picked up Three Houses on recommendation from a friend, like right when it came out, and I got hooked just because of these stupid characters, and like I needed to see where the story went. And I played around, and then if you guys don't know anything about it, like there's 3 different houses, it's 3 branching paths that are pretty dope. Once you get past a couple of little tropes, like that very anime tropes. And so I played one of the paths, and then I beat it, and I immediately like I saw credits, saw the ending thing, and then went back and played the second one. So Bougie, I started with Golden Deer because I looked at all of them, and Claude was a sweet, sweet boy, and he took over my heart with the fact that he could just rain down terror from 5 spots away. So I was a Golden Deer, and then I ended up picking up the Red House, the Iron. I can never remember the Iron Eagles, maybe War Eagle,
The Black Eagles.
Blood
Blood
Eagle.
Eagles.
Yeah, there we go. And
Blood
Yeah,
Eagles.
that's a horrible form of
Oh my
execution in
goodness.
Viking mythology.
yes,
That's-
it is. Yeah, the Blood Eagles. There we go. And Edelgard and the Blood Eagles. Which, spoiler about the story. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there's a fun twist there, and you get to end up playing as something. And now I have picked up the Blue Lions, and I had been reinstalling. I bought a 128 gig little micro SD card, and so I was just reinstalling things onto it because I needed more space on my Switch, and I reinstalled it, and I'm back, and it sucks, and I can't. I need to see where these dumb little anime characters go. Bougie, what's your house that you represent? So theoretically, I am Hufflepuff slash rep the Blue Lions. Okay, that's cool. It's the worst out of the 3 stories right now. It's been the worst so far. I've heard it gets good, and it's got a couple of my favorite characters in it. There's one of the soldiers. One of the sword guys. He's like this snarky dude that I really, really like. But outside of that, been binging Stranger Things, which we'll get to in a second. And actually, Josh, I saw the Josh Hanback posting in chat. I got a Kindle a while ago, and I talked about it a little bit, but I've been running through a couple of fantasy book series. In particular, one of them called The King Killer Chronicles, which I highly, highly recommend. The King Killer Chronicles.
That is so good.
It is
so good. The first book. Oh,
it is. Even the second book, and the third one is like apparently it's supposed to be done in October or November, which we'll see. But it's by this guy Patrick Rothfuss, who I remember watching him on this D&D stream called Critical Role. If you guys know Critical Role out there, was watching Critical Role. Rothfuss used to sit in as a guest character occasionally. The King Killer Chronicles, the way it's written, the way the characters are fleshed out, it's not overbearing like some fantasy series can be. It's pretty high fantasy, gets kind of nerdy down the rabbit hole a little bit in terms of the high fantasy stuff. But there's like a smooth edge to it that just feels all right. And then on a recommendation from Rothfuss, I started reading this series called The Gentleman Bastards, which is actually the main character is this guy, Locke Lamora. Highly, highly recommend the Gentleman Bastard series as well. It's actually about it's kind of like a Robin Hood-esque thing where it's a thieving thing. There's like a thieving guild, and I can't really get too much past it because you need to like read it the way it's structured. There's like a present day, and then there's all sorts of callbacks that keep happening, and it throws you for a loop for a second, and then life help books. Josh, I'm a pastor. I've got 3 or 4 bookshelves over there of life help books. I highly recommend. I just got done reading one right there called Crossing the Chasm. Oh my goodness, what is that other one? On a recommendation from St. Bear, it's called The Other Half of Church. I mean, we go into the books channel and we'll start just spamming you with books a little bit. Go ahead, Nev.
Oh, I was going to say, there's a book I forgot to throw in there because you mentioned the book. I'm reading a book by Richard Swan called The Justice of Kings.
Dude, I have that on an Amazon list.
Oh, it's good. If you like, it's best way to describe it, like fantasy medieval Sherlock Holmes.
That's kind of what the Locke Lamora stuff is. There's like a murder mystery thing happening. Oh, I'm in.
It's like you're a murder mystery, but there's like a much bigger sprawling thing. Just what's happened in this one town. I'm only a few chapters in, but it's good. The Justice of Kings. He has like a special power. Basically, he can invoke the emperor, like the emperor's voice, and make people tell the truth. But he only can use it like certain moments. And then if he finds a body that's like freshly killed because of a murder or whatever, he can actually invoke that person to speak if it's like a freshly killed body. Anyway.
So for those listening, you can't tell, but Templar just pulled up the 12 Rules for Life from Jordan Peterson. I love this. Where did you get that?
I just got it on his website, the poster. I need to put it in a new frame. It unfortunately fell and broke, but the frame broke. But yeah, I got it and the poster for his new book, The 12 More Rules for Life as well. So
he did 12 new rules. So there's not just 12 rules anymore. Now there's 12 new rules.
12 more, yeah. Oh. Apparently he had 42 originally, so he might have a third one. Who knows?
42, number of life, right? Cool. So that's what been watching, playing. Would love to hear what you guys are playing, watching, listening to, especially reading in the chat. Pop it to Discord. I think we can open up a books. I agree with Mark's comment in there that the Life Help and Jesus books keep stacking up. It's the trope of any sort of church leader, and it's like, oh, you guys are too busy to read, but like I am constantly reading 3 books at a time. I'm reading 2 church books. What is that one? Unchristian. Yeah, great book. Great book. He followed that up with the Idols one, right?
Yeah, there's also one on Reaching Gen Z that's really good, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's about culture.
I have it. It's called...
It's green. It's green. It's a green book. Yeah.
We should have a discussion about this
sometime in the future. Group.
Yeah, I just read that, actually. It was the one that he did in concert with Gene Twenge, who was a San Diego State researcher. Is that the one?
I don't remember. I'll look it up. We can jump. I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. I want to talk about Stranger Things because I don't read ever, but I want to start. Josh, there's only one way to start reading, and that's just go start. I feel like I'm your 5th grade teacher. Right. Just read the book, man. We're going to talk about Stranger Things. There are going to be spoilers here, Mackenzie. So here's what's going to happen. I have only watched 4 episodes of season 4. So I'm going to start this little discussion, and then I'm literally going to hit mute on this stream, and I'm going to turn chat off, and I'm essentially going to walk away, even though I got to kind of be here to produce this. And I'm going to rely on one of the 3 left. Thank you, Pastor Mark, for putting that in the Discord there. I am going to rely on one of the 3 left to ping me on Discord when the spoilers are over. Mackenzie, you might want to do the same, or you might want to I don't just walk away for a couple minutes. So as soon as I get done talking, I'm assuming there's going to be spoilers. Is that correct? You guys are going to spoil some of this stuff?
I think we should be careful. I think we should do our best to be careful.
Okay, cool. Let me give you my quick thoughts because Stranger Things is amazing. I think it was Mark on the last episode that we were talking about. He said something to the effect, and you can corroborate this if you want to, Mark. You said something to the effect of the way that the Duffer Brothers write their characters makes it so that you want to actually love them or know them a little bit more versus Star Wars, which just kind of writes characters to be flat imagination. I don't know. I can't remember what the actual quote was, but I highly, highly agree. The way they have continued to flesh out these characters, the way they have, even with the Billy stuff, even with some of the Heather stuff, like, the way they continue to do that is amazing. And I hate horror stuff. I hate it with a passion. And I cannot get enough of a lot of what's happening with Stranger Things. And so I would like to start the conversation with that. Why is it that this is reaching out to people that don't like horror?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great place to start. Man. Okay, well, if Chino Mage is muted right now and he's deafened, so he can't hear what we're talking about, which is a beautiful thing, and I guess that randomly means that we're leading the conversation, so we can make a mess of this, I guess, right? Like, yeah, that's fine. Templar, I'm genuinely curious because I've watched Stranger Things now for 5 years and I've never gone back, but you have binged all of it in like a week and a half. Mm-hmm. Like all of it, like all 4 seasons. And it's not exactly a small amount of 5 days. Yeah, it's not exactly a small amount. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's not a small amount of
Oh, Mark, we lost you.
Am I back now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I literally accidentally pushed the power button on my interface. Wow, it was freaking out. Templar, tell us about your marathon 5-day experience of watching everything Stranger Things. And Kristen just said she binged the entire thing in 4 days. You guys are nuts.
Wow.
Tell your experience everything in 5 days.
Sure. Well, you beat me, Kristen. That's impressive. To watch all 4 seasons in 4 days, that's impressive. So for me, yeah, I mean, it's something I'd always been interested in. I had watched the first episode previously, but I had never continued on with it. I don't know why. I mean, I had heard it was great. So we decided to talk about season 4, and then I went back. So my experience with it was, I mean, I get it. I mean, I get why it's been so beloved. And I mean, I know I've been that guy on this show, but I'm not here to hate on this one. Like there's some issues, but like overall, it's a fantastic show. I totally get why it's exploded in the way that it has. Season 1 in particular, I think is still the best season to me. And it just does such a good job of drawing you in. And I love that it breaks some of the tropes that I have come to expect from like horror stuff or even from sort of ensemble cast stuff, where at least in season 1, and this is actually a minor complaint that I have in some of the later seasons, is there's actually a lot of time of everyone kind of coming and working together. And I sort of love that. Because I find in too many things, you have a big cast, but you either never see them together, or it's just like they're all in their own groups, which can be fine. I mean, that's largely season 4, and it's well done. But I kind of love that in season 1, it's like people aren't skeptical for an eternity. Like people see stuff and then they're like, okay, and then they're on board. And it's just like they play into the fact that people are sort of crazy because of the stuff they're seeing just enough before it gets tiresome. And then like people come together and everyone like legitimately kind of works together to accomplish a goal. And I think, I mean, from what you and Chino already said, I mean, the writing is great. I mean, the characters are great. The writing is fantastic. And, I said this in our Discord group, but it's the best group of child actors I've seen in anything. I think.
Hands down. That I
can think of off the top of my head anyway.
Like, I
can't think of.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the
I can't
Sandlot.
think of
You do have
another.
the Sandlot.
Sure, there are some of those like uh, movies from like the 80s, 90s, I guess, that had child casts, and they were, some of them were okay. But it's the best child cast that I've seen. I mean, we saw Obi-Wan, so we know what happens when child actors do not turn out great, unfortunately. So like having a show where they basically hit it out of the park with pretty much all the entire cast, and even with the new additions, is great. Now, one downside about watching the entire show in 5 days is a lot of it's sort of blurred together for me in a way that is probably not as helpful. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's just been fantastic. I've loved the development. Although, clearly they're taking longer to make it than the supposed time change in the show. So that's becoming a little weird. Like if there's 3 years in between seasons, but there's only 1 year in between, like in the actual universe time, it becomes a little strange. So like the actors look much older than they should. But anyway, I like it. I think season 1 is my favorite. Season 2 is probably the worst season in my opinion. It was still okay, but to me it was sort of the one I like the least. And then I've heard some complaints about season 3, but it's kind of a straight out of an 80s action movie with the Russian villains and like all these like old action movie references and stuff, and I kind of love that. So I'm into season 3. And then season 4 to me is probably the second best of them. After season 1. So yeah, it's just been great. I totally get why people have loved it, and we can get into more specifics, but I'll hand it off.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm focusing on season 4 and like my thoughts. We loved it. Like Jen is in chat and she's saying that she loved season 4. I loved it too. One of the negatives of not watching them so close to it is I've never rewatched season 1. So I'm 4 or 5 years away from season 1 at this point. So when I think back on it, I'm like, oh, it was really good. Obviously, it hooked me. A spider just fell down from my roof and landed on my face. I'm not even joking. I had to smash it on my desk. And I enjoyed it. Season 2 wasn't my favorite. Season 3 it was probably my least of the seasons. And I'll be honest, because it's been so long since I've seen season 1, I'm now watching season 4, and I'm saying this might be my favorite season of the batch. And I think that you could argue that there's probably pretty good reason for that. Like there is some of the best payoff in season 4. My only real complaint about the entire season, and Jen and I agreed on this, was there's this really drawn out storyline with Hopper where it's like, hey, would you like to see someone get punished and then get hope, and then but they're not, there's actually no hope, they're gonna get punished, and then how about some hope, but nope, there's not actually any hope, and now they're really punished. And there is a payoff for it, but it was like there was, and I agree with you, Tep, like there was so much in season 4 that I was like, okay, next episode they're getting together, next episode they're getting together, when are they gonna get together, they're all gonna be in the same place and be together. And then they sort of did that like pseudo, right? Like they all contributed to the same narrative from vastly different things. So in a way, in the last episode, they do bring them together, and at the very same time, they kept them separate. And I enjoyed that, and they raised the stakes, right? They raised the stakes at the end of season 4 that says, what the heck? Where like season 5, you really set yourself up to either do something amazing or have it fail really, really, really badly and be an enormous disappointment. But that's really one of the only things. The storylines of the characters were great. I thought that season 4 had done a really good job of, there's so much that the brothers who write the show do to confuse the heck out of you, where like most shows that I watch at this point, I can predict and say that character's going to die, that's going to happen there, this person's going to happen there. And Jen and I are watching and we're like, okay, is it going to be, Nancy or Steve? Which one of them going to die? Because we had this really good moment between the two of them. And then it's like, oh, we had a really good moment between Max and Lucas. And then we had a really good moment between, Eddie and Dustin. And then we had this really good moment between, Mike and Will. And then we had this really good moment between Will and his brother. And so I was like, literally the only person who I do not think is going to die is the pizza guy, because he didn't have a good moment, right? There was never like a deep moment that they were setting you up if they killed him that you would hate the villain even more. And so I just didn't know who was going to die. Like, I knew someone was dying, and I knew probably more than one person was dying, but there was no point, and without spoiling it, there was no point that I was like, that's the person that's going to die. And I think that was something that keeps me on the edge of my seat. Stranger Things, the writers do such a good job of, like, the first half of every season is so insanely tense, right? It's this psycho thriller. You're trying to figure things out. You never know what's going on. You're kind of confused. The characters are confused, and you're just anxious. Like, I'm watching season 4 just freaking anxious. And then there's this tipping point in each of the seasons where you have figured out what's going on and you know what needs to happen. And now your anxiety and tension don't come from the mystery. It comes from what the results are going to be. And I think that there's this emotional roller coaster ride that goes on with the show where you're like, I hate it, but I love it. And then there's all of this, like, I love it at the end. It's like, I don't know what it is that they do to you, but I can distinctly remember every season, like, all of the buildup of all of the tension that was in me and wanting relief from it. And that's why I'm continuing to watch. And then it's like there's something that snaps, and it's like a couple episodes of just action, relief, resolution, completion, but there's still something left there that makes me want to come back. And I think that they've just done such a good job in the story writing and what they reveal to you and what they don't reveal to you. I mean, I've written D&D mystery campaigns before. It is not easy to give a person enough information to get them at that place, but not tip them off. It's so hard to do that. And they just do that in freaking spades in this show. And continued to just really impress me. Oh man, so good. Nav, I don't know. I know you finished watching it too. Go ahead and give me some thoughts.
Yeah, I finished it last night. So it's a little bit more fresh on my mind. But I'm just gonna echo what you guys said. I think the writing is like really, really strong. I did think, like, you're right about the whole Hopper thing. I think that was a little drawn out. I felt it was. Like, that was the only thing. That's my own criticism. It was just kind of like, okay, when's that going to resolve itself? I mean, but at the end, it did pay off. It did pay off at the end. And so I'm happy about that. But I did like, I guess it's a little spoilerish. But how they do like 3 things at once. You know what I mean? Like the whole upside down, the mind, like how they did that with like basically 3 like different storylines, but all working out well. I mean, I thought it was brilliant. It reminded me a little bit of, someone said like, this season had like Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, basically, and because it had a lot to do with like mental and stuff like that, in the mind, things were happening and stuff like that, and and people could be killed, that way. So I'm just gonna echo, it was good. I enjoyed it. The writing is really good. Netflix has signed them on for 7 more projects. One of them is yes. One of them is I'll actually. When Chino comes back in, I'll say this, okay? Because I think it's something really cool that you guys can look up. The only other thing was, let me think here. I mean, I thought it was all good. It was a payoff. The consequences at the end, I think, are really cool. I was like, okay, how they're going to do this to make it impactful. They made it impactful at the end, all right? With a lot of things. That brings it to season 5, which will be cool. I did like, just for the kick of it, like I guess it was like an 80s trope type thing, but it reminded me of like Mad Max type thing when Eddie was on top of the roof of the RV, Metallica was playing, flames and like that stuff. That was cool. That was just cool. I know that was, some people didn't like that. I just thought that was cool. I'm like, okay, that's pretty sick. Not gonna lie, that just like
reminds me incredible.
Of yeah, I loved it. I was like, this is like you imagine like an 80s concert, like the Hellfire Club, Metallica playing and all that stuff. And I like how they really played into the whole satanic panic type thing that was going on in the 80s. If you've ever read about that, they did like talk about. I thought that was cool because D&D was like kind of spearheaded as like summoning demons and everything else and worshiping Satan, and they did that stuff, which D&D is not that. But
we literally talked to our friend. We literally talked to friends who grew up in the 80s. One of them is a D&D player. His wife is not, and she's like, "Yeah, we're watching this," and I literally remember reading like the Vanity Fair article that said that D&D was demonic and made people kill people. Like, she's like, I actually read those articles. It was so accurate to what actually happened in the 80s that she lived through and experienced. That she just thought that was really impressive, like how accurate it was to, you know, the experience that she had growing up and
Yeah.
experiencing D&D from her point of view.
Yeah, a lot of the
Yeah,
stuff was
well-
just accurate how they did things. What was it, Templar?
I was gonna say, like, one of my few complaints about this season 4 is actually that plot line of how long it carries.
Are you
I
talking
don't
about
mind
Hoppers?
that. No, with Jason, like the
Okay.
whole like he thinks the Hellfire group is like summoning whatever, and like I think that's okay early in the season, but and I'm gonna get into like a little more heavier spoilers here, so I guess just be aware, everyone listening. But like the fact that Jason is still on that in the final episode, like when he shows up at the end at the house, I'm like, can we wrap this up? Like I'm done with this plot line. Can
Mhm.
we just like I don't care about this. There are far bigger things happening. Like so that's a subplot I kind of wish they had resolved earlier in the season and not been part of the finale. Because to me, the thing that kind of kept season 4 from maybe being the best season was the final episode. Like to me, the final episode's a bit of a mess. Like I liked it. I enjoyed it. There were like I liked the resolution to some of it, but I mean it's 2.5 hours. Like
Mhm.
it was too long, and to me it felt too long. Like I get it. Like you want as much content as you can, but it's too many things happening all at once, and the way they had to jump in between them and back and forth, and the timing of that just never really synced up well to me. You have a moment where Steve, I think was Steve, Jonathan, and Nancy are getting strangled for like 40 minutes up against the wall because
Yeah,
they like
yeah.
because like these vines take over them, and then it cuts, and but then we don't come back to them for like 40 minutes, and it's like even if you want to say these things are happening concurrently, it just feels kind of off. Um, so like it's not a major complaint because again I still liked the season overall. I still thought it was great, but I think the final episode for me was a bit of a letdown. And then the finale, like with what happens, they have this big reveal of this consequence that happens, and then they're like 2 days later, and you're like, wait, what? What happened? Like, wait, what was the consequence? Like, what didn't that cause some problems? Don't we have some issues to deal with now? And then they like just walk out, and then they're like, oh yeah, there is an issue. I'm like, wait, what's happened for 2 days? Like, I don't. The time jump was weird to me. Like, so there were some things in the final episode that I thought it just didn't quite stick the landing for me. Um, but again, I mean, the show's great, and having them all finally kind of show up and you get the reunion moment, like some of that I think was genuinely pretty emotional. So overall, like that part was well done, but yeah, just the final episode
So
didn't.
So two things
Yeah,
real
go ahead.
quick. One, Bougie says Jason's the worst, and his biggest complaint about season 4 is that no one is an adult. There's lots of things and I agree. There's some like far fetched stuff with like going to the guns and ammo store and buying stuff, stealing a car, all of those sorts of things. The trope of Stranger Things that channels like the 80s trope, right, is that parents and authorities are idiots, right, and they will
Mhm.
be incapable of but that's not something that's new to Stranger Things. That's always been the case, right? The mall burnt down. We're never going to figure out what that was about, right? The point is the protagonists are children, and they are the only ones that can help in this world because in this world, authorities and parents are oblivious to what's actually going on around them. They've sort of drunk the Kool-Aid and just believe whatever news and media publicizes and puts out, right? They don't ever get the peek behind the curtain. And one of my favorite RPGs is Tales from the Loop, and that actually puts that into effect. It literally says in the RPG, you as playing kids in the 80s cannot go to adults or authorities because they will literally always not believe you or always dismiss your claims. And so it really channels that particular tropes. I actually don't mind them leading into that. My thought on the whole Jason storyline was like I actually thought at the lake when one of the kids dies, I thought at that moment we were going to see a flip in Jason, and he was going to realize it wasn't Eddie in the Hellfire Club, but it was something bigger, and he was going to become an ally rather than an enemy. And I think that would have been really cool, because he's actually a pretty menacing villain sort of character. They always have one of those, right? You know, you had Steve and you had Billy and you had those. He is kind of menacing. He's a little bit scary because he's just seemingly unbalanced, right? And he has this sort of blind rage that, and he's willing to use deadly force, which is unlike what we've seen with some of the other sort of human villain that we have in each episode. And so I liked that about him. I just wish we would have seen a flip in his character. I think that would have been better, because even his storyline at the end is sort of like, okay, he literally didn't do anything pretty much the entire season. All of his scenes are basically null and void, especially with how his storyline ends in the very last episode in the last couple of minutes. And so you're right. I don't think he's not the best part of that, but man, hey, North Hill Live, good to see you. Plays off of the real life history that a lot of parents in the 80s were hands off latchkey kids. Yeah. And it is, Jen said that it is really playing off of that. And I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with that trope being played up in Stranger Things. I've come to expect it at this point. Like, there's never a point where you expect Mike's dad to do anything helpful, right? Every time he's on camera, you know he is the character that reinforces the trope that no adults are going to care or understand what's going on, except, Hopper and the characters that are pivotal to the story. And I like that element of Stranger Things, actually.
Yeah. I think it all plays in. It's good. Yeah. Any last words before we invite?
On it now?
What was that?
I just said, have we talked through it now? Is there anybody? Yeah. Any last words like Nav said?
I think we're good. Okay. Let's invite Gino. Let's give him a thumbs up or message him.
I just pinged him.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. You're tagging me back in here?
Yes. Real quick to close this conversation out. It's not spoilers. This is a good thing.
Whoa, I was going to say, I'm gonna throw my headphones back out of my ear if you do that.
No. This is good. They have signed on for 7 more projects to do. A Stranger Things spinoff. A Steven Spielberg. No, Spielberg. No. Not Spielberg. Who's the Stephen King?
Okay.
They're doing something with Stephen King, which makes sense, And then Death Note, which was an anime.
Yes,
if you don't know
I saw
about that.
I did see that.
They're making a live action, but hopefully they do it well and not the.
Didn't that already happen?
Not the other one.
Didn't they already make a live action Death Note?
No,
but
it was an animated. It was real bad.
No. Yeah. It was a Japanese company that produced it and everything, and so. But this will be like with, be done in English as the native language.
It was real bad. I watched like 15 minutes of that Death Note thing. It's like this does not resemble anything from any of the original source material, and turned it right back off. So, do we feel fulfilled from our conversation there? I'm gonna go back after I finish season 4, and I'm gonna listen to what y'all said. So, hopefully you made me proud.
Yeah, I feel fulfilled. I feel like we're gonna have to revisit it once you finished it though, and get your thoughts, because I feel like we could probably sit here and hash out stuff from Stranger Things season 4 and our hopes for season 5 for probably 2 hours if we wanted to.
Cool. Let's table that. Let's do that in about. I was not playing Monster Hunter Bouge. I was playing Fire Emblem. I had to run around and have dinner with a couple of my characters, and there was some maintenance things that needed to happen. I needed to duel with this lady named Catherine, and it was a thing. It was an ordeal, but we're there. I'm in one of the battles, and I had to sign off because I knew things were tracking. So I know Nav has to go in a couple of minutes. I wanted to intro the topic, and Nav, if you don't want to dive in, that's completely fine. We wanted to start to have the conversation about something that's been coming up a lot recently, and it's this idea of how to deal with those people in your life, whether online or in person, that require just a little bit more grace or a lot more grace from you. We're calling them the messy people, but that's kind of a book from Jenny Allen a while ago. My wife actually did it as a Bible study, how to deal with messy people. but it's this idea of you look around on social media, you look around in the world, you look around in just culture, and it seems like there's this expansion of people that are just laying on the mess onto you every single day. There's posting of inflammatory comments, there's inflammatory conversations, there's things that are immediately triggering to a lot of people, and especially in the realm of where we are right now on Twitch, in gamer culture, and even kind of just in the internet subculture of the rest of the world. People are so quick to just turn into keyboard warriors and put on their digital beer muscles and just start lobbing insults back and forth at each other. And we wanted to have a discussion about how to actually deal with that. And I'm talking, and at least when we were formulating the question, I'm talking practical tips, because I think everybody can just say, well, Jesus says turn the other cheek. And like, that's great. But like in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something to you, like, how do you practically actually follow the commands that Jesus says, to go an extra mile, to give them your cloak, to do the things that Jesus actually says. So I'm going to open up the conversation from here. Nav, if you want to take it and then kind of dip out, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll just say a few things real quick, then I'll slip out. So sorry about that. Just, I'm leaving for a camp in the morning, and I got to get some things ready. But anyway, dealing with people, messy people. One thing, practical thing I try never to do, I have to be careful, is never get in an argument on Twitter, on Instagram, and comments. If I'm going to have a conversation, it's like, hey, let's DM, or let's like video. If it's someone I know, it's like, let's DM or video chat. I don't like DMing because you can't tell with vocal inflections and stuff like, stuff like that. You don't know how you could take it the wrong way when it wasn't meant that way. And so I always try to do it over a chat if I can. If I have to deal with someone, and if someone is real combative and argumentative and stuff, and I would say, hey, if we want to talk, I try to always wait 24 hours to talk. That's one of my things too. If it's someone's really heated, because you'll have time to cool down, and hopefully that person can process things and you can process things too. And try to. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes you might have to say, hey, in a couple hours, whatever. It depends on that. But those are just a couple practical things that I try to do, is just not to get in those conversations debating online, because I've never seen, in my experience, I've never seen a conversation turn out good. Does that make sense? It's always been just both people still leave triggered or upset with each other, or that person still thinks you're an idiot or something, it doesn't, a lot of times I don't see things resolved. Now they could be sometimes, but a lot of times I've never seen it when I see people going back. When I'm the third person watching two people arguing and Facebook comments or on Twitter, whatever, I never see those two people resolve things. They just kind of well, you think what you think, I think what they think, see ya. And I'm like, why am I going to waste my time doing this for 15, 20 minutes? That's my practical thing. I know there's other stuff we can get into, like how to love that person if you are going to engage that conversation. And if you want to go in that, one thing I talked to, I think Mark and I talked, is listen before you speak. And just what do you have to say? Where are you coming from? Because you don't know their background. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know their spiritual journey. Their lifestyle or any of that. So we have to take into account that we don't know that. So we can't presume anything. And, but we can listen and learn, and then we can try to help them spiritually in that sense. And so, anyway, but those are my couple thoughts. I'm going to listen, and I'm sure I'll chime in a little bit later, but yeah, so anyway, I'll see you guys next time and everything. I'm going to take off. I got to do some things, but, I'll be listening to this as I do this. So later, everyone in chat, it was great hanging out with you all.
Yeah, thanks, Deb.
And so anyway, you guys take it and go, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Ta-ta. Yeah, I would agree. The problem is that sometimes you're not dealing with somebody that's necessarily level-headed. You're not dealing with myself or Bougie, for example, in the chat, who's saying he just comes in there like Mike Tyson punching people. A lot of times I know he's totally trolling. But a lot of times the internet is a terrible place to have an actual nuanced discussion about anything. And the idea that you're going to win an argument online, first of all, is almost antithetical to what Jesus actually talks about and the way Jesus actually was. And second of all, you're never, and this comes from Andy Stanley in his new book, Not in It to Win It, which kind of talks about this exact same thing. But he says you're never going to hate anybody into the kingdom. You're never going to convince somebody through hatred to believe in your Jesus. You're never going to convince somebody via lobbing insults and really even over talking and over spiritualizing or over explaining your point. You're never going to do that and win them to the faith. Instead, you have to develop the skill of listening, and it's an incredible skill. It's an incredibly humbling skill. It's a skill that I'm awful at because I do like to talk, and I'm not an empathetic person, and I have a tough time really walking a mile in somebody's shoes. I've gotten better as I've gotten older and been through many years of pastoral training and sitting with people in rooms and all that. But one of the most practical things I could always say is just remember that your hatred is not going to lead anywhere, and the flames of your fury are often going to lead to pushing people away. What else you got, practical wise?
Templar, what you got practical wise for being being nice and loving towards people who suck? That's really what the subject is, right?
Essentially, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Like, when someone
I don't know.
sucks, how do you be nice?
I don't know. This is a tough one. Like, on the surface of it, I'm a messy person who needs grace. Like, just being honest. Like, I don't start random fights online. Like, so I'm not sort of in that category. But just in like day-to-day life, I'm a kind of a mess and I need grace. So like, my wife would probably be better to come on and talk about like how she has grace, with me. But she is a very empathetic person, and she does sort of understand situations that I'm dealing with, and like she can see where people are coming from. And so I think that, bringing that up was a good point, Chino, because when we see people online, and I don't engage in, I'm an argumentative person by nature, so I don't have Twitter. I have Facebook, but I don't use it. Like, I don't use it to talk to people about anything contentious, because I know it will just not probably end up going well if I really like kind of step into that, because I have a tendency to tune people out pretty quickly if I get the sense that like they're not saying anything worth listening to. And so I think being empathetic is important in that it's not always, you can kind of look at how people are saying things and how aggressive they're coming across, and like what they're saying sort of suggests about them more than the specific words they're saying. Because I think especially in an increasingly polarized age, people might go off about whatever. It doesn't matter. It can literally be almost anything. But you have to kind of think like, okay, what has this person dealt with? Like, what's bringing out this like absolutely vitriolic response from them, which is to me a little bit more than them just being like messy people. It's something potentially wrong in terms of their mental health or in terms of their past, and they're just like lashing out against anyone who disagrees with them because of it. And so there's a couple ways to respond to that. One, you can just disengage completely. Two, you can just try to be kind, like, and just say like, hey, I don't know what you're dealing with, but this conversation isn't going anywhere productive, so I wish the best for you, and then you sort of move on with your life. Like, or you can engage and try to steer it towards something productive, but that's going to be based on the individual, whether or not they're capable of doing that, which for me, in many cases, I'm not capable of doing that. Just being real, I have a hard time with that. But I think we have to see past the sort of rhetoric, because a lot of what people say is just rhetoric from other people. If you listen to people, not to get into contentious topics, but obviously Roe v. Wade has been a huge thing the last couple of weeks. And if you see what people are posting online, a lot of it is just parroting what you see on the news or what you see on various posts or what various other influential people are saying. And so someone's not even speaking their own words. They're just like lashing out in whatever way that they think is going to get them the most attention. And so, like, what does that say about that individual? I don't know, but it has nothing to do with their words. So I don't know if I have a clear answer on this other than obviously engaging is generally not the best way to go about it, but I don't know, maybe Mark has something more insightful to say, but I see the problem,
Nah.
but I don't know. It's a tough one for me.
I think that's good advice. Like, I mean, one of the first things that you have to do is you have to detach, right, what you're feeling from the person and understand what actually is going on. Like, I can't tell you how many times first off, Jedi 42, good to see you. Welcome into the chat. First time here. Welcome. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been I've seen a Facebook post or I've seen something come up and like, I'm just infuriated instantaneously by it. Right. And it's somebody that I care about, and it's like, how could you even think this thing? And it's like, well, they're not actually thinking this thing. They're reading this thing and they're saying, and then they're clicking repost, right? Like they're like, and probably that's about as much thought. Like the amount of thought that I'm putting into what they've posted is probably significantly more than what they've chosen to repost. There's also a lot of people out there that just don't understand the collateral damage of reposting crap. And the reputation that sets for them, despite how many people have been warned that what goes on the internet stays on the internet forever. And no matter how many times we've said that, there's a lot of people online that just don't have very strong internet literacy, which is why we do see sort of the political cesspool that Facebook has become, because you have a lot of people who did not grow up on the internet on Facebook, and they have very low internet literacy to enable them to realize that the crap that they're posting, other people can see. And I love what Nav said, like, I'm the third party watching these two people post. But the reality is you're not the third party. You're the 250th party, or you're the 2500 party who is watching these two people post. And so it's the spectation, right? Like, everyone gets to spectate. You think you're posting to one person, but you're actually posting to anyone who looks at it, which is significantly more than the one person, because the more people that post on it, the more Facebook is like, this is infuriating people. Angry people buy things, post it at the top of their feed, so they click our advertisements and they buy things because that's how marketing works, right? They base it off your emotions. So the more posting something gets, the more angry people are, the more likely it is for people to see it, the more collateral damage that happens as a product of it. My thought is more like, I've just used these things over the years. So I've been a pastor. Sheena Mage has been a pastor for a long time. I've been a pastor for, 12 and a half years now about. And you deal with a lot of people in pastoral ministry that need a lot of grace. Because, like, spoiler alert, a lot of people who have significant emotional problems, big trauma in their life, find it hard to fit in the world. And so they come to church because they think like, oh, they have to let me fit in here. And so like church just attracts a tremendous number of people that have like trauma in their background, and that's not a bad thing. Like, those are the people that Jesus was with. Those are the people Jesus built the kingdom with. That's what the church started with. That's who I am. So I'm okay with that. Like, that's a good thing. But it does mean as a pastor, like, you deal with a lot of crap. And a lot of it is like, you didn't even do it, right? Like, you didn't do anything wrong. They're just really pissed off at somebody else, and they can't get to that person, but they feel like because I tithe, I get to come and yell at you. And that's it's a really damaging mentality, but there's a tremendous number of people inside the church that sort of carry that mentality. And so that can be really hard as a pastor, because they make really intentional, deep personal cuts. They attack your job as a parent. They'll attack your job as a pastor. They'll attack your leadership. They'll attack whatever they can, because them attacking you makes them feel good. And I've learned a couple of things that have just been helpful sayings that I've kept in the back of my mind. One, Pastor Chris taught me this, hurting people hurt people, which has probably been said a million times other places. But when someone is attempting to hurt me, and I didn't really do anything to deserve that hurt, right? And maybe I did something wrong, but certainly not to deserve the visceral reaction that I'm getting. I try to remember, okay, hurting people hurt people. This person is hurting. So what's going on right now isn't that they're actually mad at me. What's going on is they're hurting in some other aspect of their life. And this has been a grand scale since 2020. We have so many people isolated, depressed, and hurting, and their natural reaction is to go out and hurt people.
Yeah.
And for a year, they only could do that on the internet. And so, you see that a lot. So I try to keep that in the back of my mind. The other thing that I've just been brutal with, like, I'm just a little ruthless with it, is just having like really firm boundaries. I just refuse to let people into my life with the intention of abusing me, verbally attacking me, whatever, because it like they get off on that in some capacity, right? That they're receiving something by attacking me, and I refuse to pay that price. Like, no, I'm sorry, you don't get to meet with me. Like, you don't get to just get in a scenario where you get to sit down and attack me for an hour so that you get to feel better about you. Like, you got something to vent, like, deal with it, suck it. I don't know, but like, I don't allow myself to get into those situations. Literally had this last week, had someone over Discord just go on a tirade, and it wasn't even like a two-way conversation. It was like, I would respond and I would get 15, and I don't even know this person really. and it was just like, oh my gosh. And finally it ended with like a direct attack and a threat. And I was like, yeah, I'm never responding to you again. Like, you will drift into the back of my brain, and I will not think of you 3 months from now. So I'm okay with letting this, like, that's a boundary that I'm okay with having. Like, I'm okay with saying, you don't get to engage with me anymore until you cool it. Like, until you apologize, until you figure it out. And sometimes as Christians, we sort of feel like our job is to let people abuse us. And I would say that there's a certain extent in which turning the other cheek is real. There's going to be people that hurt you. There are going to be people who wound you. There's going to be people that you have to forgive. And the practice of being a Christian inside the church is this consistent opportunity to be vulnerable with people, just like marriage is. Marriage is this, I'm going to consistently go and be vulnerable with you and give my wife the opportunity to hurt me. And if she does, I'm going to forgive her and give her another opportunity to hurt me again, because that's transparency, that's vulnerability, that's intimacy. And the church is very similar in that. But what it's not saying is, I'm going to consistently give someone who's intentionally trying to hurt me, intentionally trying to abuse me, isn't repentant for it, doesn't care about it, and is getting off on it, the opportunity to do that again. I don't think that's what Jesus says when he's talking about turning the other cheek to people inside of our communities. I think it's about, there's somebody who's wounded you. They're repentant to a certain extent. They didn't mean to. That wasn't necessarily their intention. They're hurting themselves. And so maybe they did mean to, but we know that's not their character. And we need to forgive and learn to be vulnerable and transparent and open ourselves up to things like that again. That's turning the other cheek for me. And so it's just boundaries. It's like understanding where they are, not allowing the attack to become personal, and then just having firm boundaries with people who are there because they need to get something out of attacking you.
Yeah, Nav in the chat said there's a difference between listening and being verbally abused, and I completely agree with that. I also think that the listening thing is and I'm taking this into Twitch realm, I'm taking this into the internet realm. We don't have to listen. More and more and more we are, and that's a bad thing. More and more we are inundated with our own, the people that we think are our tribe. And so we're consistently cloistering ourselves and siloing ourselves off from, well, I just don't want to hear that. Well, I don't want to believe that. And then, then you have things like QAnon that are happening, or you have like whatever left version of QAnon, Antifa, I don't know what we're going to call it, but you have these far extreme groups on either side of the political spectrum. And then you take it into the church world, take it into video game world, take it into every world. You get people that start in the middle and then just get pushed to the extremes because they just keep saying like, well, I don't like that. And pretty soon you just slowly over time are working your way into the margins. And then it becomes a point where like, I don't even have to listen to anybody that's in the middle. I don't even have to listen to that's anybody that, somebody that opposes me. Well, they're not for me, so they must be against me. And the thing that often gets upheld, especially in conservative Christian culture, is that You hear people taking the scripture, taking the passage where Jesus walked into the temple and started flipping over tables and saying, "Look, Jesus he was an angry God. He's an angry Lord. You know, he was dealing with corruption. He was dealing with this. Like, it's my job to go in there and just lay waste to what people are thinking." Not reading the actual context of that story, where yes, Jesus, he did an angry act, but there is something so much greater there that was actually talking about corruption. And there was a political corruption happening from the church at the time. Jesus wasn't railing against anything in terms of Roman government. He was actually taking the church at face value and going, look, you Israelite Jewish leaders, you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. You are selling the soul of this temple. And it was only one little minor gate. Anyway, if you look into the context of that story, you start to realize, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe it's not my job to go in there and just lay waste to people that don't have my own opinion, or shut them off and essentially treat them like sinners and treat them like outcasts and not ever listen to them. There's an interesting thing that happens when you actually start to listen, however, and when you start to actually calm your blood pressure, and when you calm yourself just a little bit and start to actually engage with somebody that's actually on another side. And this, obviously, Nav talked about taking it to DMs. I honestly don't think DMs work. Again, you can't really read facial features. You can't read subcontext. You can't read anything. That's when a FaceTime, a Discord message, or a Discord call, a phone call, or even like coffee or something like that actually helps to hear somebody out. And it's a one-on-one thing, or maybe a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, but it's not an entire group on Reddit fighting another group on Reddit. That's not what listening is. Listening is an active skill that allows your heart to be opened just a little bit more. That is the biggest tip I always give anybody, I counsel anybody on, is, hey, you need to learn to listen. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be vulnerable, but you need to listen. Shut up and let somebody else do the talking for just a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that listening, we talked about this at church this past week, of course, too.
Yeah.
Went through the book of James, and we were talking about quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, and how important that is for our witness as followers of Jesus, in the world that we live in today, where everyone's talking over one another. We sort of unpack some of that, and I think it really does come back to that. Like, how do you deal with people who are high grace, high need people? Listening is key to that. And I think the other side of that is too, like, how do you help people who maybe they're not ill-intentioned, they're just really needy, So we all encounter those people too. Like, if given the opportunity, this person would drain every piece of energy that I had. They would take all of me if they were given the opportunity, and they sort of know, right? Because people who are in that place feel like I'm always in that place, and then they know how to play all of the guilt trip cards, right, too. Like, oh, I know that I'm too much, or I know that I'm in a bad place, and I know it's on me, or if you don't talk to me, I'm gonna hurt myself. And they know how to play all of the cards to sort of get you to respond and get you back into the conversation and to get you to sit back down with them. And there are some points where, when it comes to boundaries, that you have to realize there's a point where my life ends and your life begins, and that's okay. Like, there will be people that I'll meet with 1 time, 2 times, and I'll be willing to sit down with them and I'll pour into them. But there's a big difference between a person who is in a particularly bad season and needs someone to listen to them, and a person who is intentionally staying in that season because they've learned how to live that way. And you, instead of helping them, enable them to stay in that season by consistently being there all the time. And sometimes people do need to learn, well, I can't keep abusing this relationship by sucking energy from this person to make myself feel a little bit better every night. Like, I have to learn to turn to Christ, have to learn to turn to Jesus and find my fulfillment there, because that's ultimately where it needs to come from. Or I need to make changes to my life that will adjust my circumstances, because my circumstances are creating in me this thirst and this need to draw energy and life from other people. There are seasons where that's okay. Like, there will be people that I encounter, I'm like, you're in a season where you're high needs. I've been in season where I'm high needs before. This is okay with me. I'm down with this. This does not bother me one bit. And I've been with people before where it's like, no, this is a repetitive nature. You've been in this for a long time. you clearly haven't been ready to get better, and me giving you my energy, my time, my resources isn't actually going to help you get any better. It's going to reinforce an ideology that you have that says, I need people in this scenario in order to get me through each and every day.
Yeah.
And it's okay to identify that in people and recognize it and say, and the way that I do this is I set boundaries that say, okay, I'll have the conversation. I'll say, hey, I really feel like you need to do these things. And if they say, no, I won't do those things, or if they say, yes, I will do them, and they never do them, then I say, I can't meet with you. Like, I can't keep doing life with you. It's nothing against you personally, but you're not in a place where you actually want to get better. You're not listening to me. You don't care about what I have to say. You're just looking to take life from me. And therefore I can't do that anymore. And that's okay. It's okay for me not to be able to do that. And I'll tell them, when you're ready to make adjustments and actually change your life, when you're willing to change your relationships, when you're willing to change how you're spending your day, when you're willing to change your attitude, I would love to be part of that narrative and help you with that. I would love to be part of that story because I love you enough that I want to be part of the story of restoration in your life. But I am not going to put myself in a situation that allows you to continue in this way. And I can't be part of that narrative that enables you to keep living the way you're living. You're not doing yourself a favor. You're not doing me any favors. It's not helping anybody. And I think that's a good way to love people. Like, hey, here are the stipulations for me to continue to be in this relationship. You can do those things or you can't. But I'm not controlling your actions. I'm not trying to manipulate you and force you to do something. I'm just saying this is what has to happen for the relationship. And if you're unwilling to do it, that's okay. But that's your choice. That's your choice. You're choosing to not participate in the relationships. These are my stipulations. These are my boundaries. You get to make the choice whether or not you want to participate in my life. And that's been really helpful for me dealing with people who need high grace, who aren't ill-intentioned. They're just in a bad place and refuse to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Or make any adjustments to get out of it.
Absolutely. Templar, what are we missing here?
I mean, I think you guys would have more experience with this than I would. So, I mean, I think you've kind of covered the majority of it. I think it's great to give people plenty of opportunities to come out of the place they're in. But even speaking from my own personal experience, there are times where I've thought about reaching out to people, or even Mark or other various kind of pastors or whoever over the years, and where I haven't bothered because nothing has really changed. There's no point in me contacting someone to ask if they can meet up just for me to complain about the same thing I complained about last time I met up with them 2 months ago. What I've heard their input on it, and I either know or don't know what I have to do, but in most cases I know what I have to do to make changes. And so it's on me at that point. Am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? And I'm aware of that. And that doesn't mean I've actually made the changes. I mean, I've made some, but I think it's about self-reflection. I mean, we've talked about some things related to this in the past. I think people really need to take the time to see what are you trying to get from the person you're asking help for, from. You want to get together with someone and you want them to assist you in some way. What is it that you're hoping from them? And not that it's bad to ask for help. It's great. But what are you trying to get out of it? What are you hoping that they'll tell you? What are you hoping that they'll instruct you in that will clear things up for you? What is it exactly? Because that's what I do. I weigh it myself. Well, I could ask someone if they want to meet up to talk, but I'm what do I need from them? Or what do I hope I'll get from them? Is that something I need to talk to them about? Or do I already know the answer to that and I just kind of want someone to feel bad for me?
Yeah.
Why, what is it you're actually trying to accomplish with it? So I think there's just a self-awareness there. And I think what Mark said is right. I think you have to be, obviously you want to be open and you want to assist people, but you also have to be sometimes a little harsh in the way that you say, look, I've offered my assistance. I've made suggestions. If you don't want to take them, then so be it. But then what else are you looking for from me? You've gotten my opinion on this. I've tried to suggest things that might help you. If you aren't interested in doing any of those things and you don't know what to do, then maybe there's someone else you need to speak to, or maybe you need to reevaluate where you're at, or your understanding of your problem, or what it is you're willing to do, or are you willing to get out of your current situation. Um, so I think that was, well said. So that's all I would really add.
Cool. Yeah. I think we should wrap up here. Before we do, I constantly keep coming back to the question, especially lately, since really COVID started blowing things up and we started getting hyper politicized, hyper polarized, hyper anythingized, radicalized in all of our conversations, it seems like. I have constantly been asking myself, what does love require of me in this instance? And that sounds super like, oh man, everybody love everybody. But at the core of the gospel is this idea that Jesus was essentially coming to humanity and saying, look, love requires that I die. That's what love requires of me. Now, what does love require you to do? And hey, Biddy Beth, good to see you in chat. You can go back and catch the VOD or the YouTube video in a couple of days. The idea that love requires, sometimes it requires us to smack them in the head, like Mark and Templar were saying. Sometimes it requires us to listen. Sometimes it requires us to have a conversation. Sometimes it requires X, Y, Z. The question that needs to follow you is, what does love require of you? There we go. I think that's like, I'm going to mic drop at that point if that's okay. Well, I can't. It's on a stand. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's attached to a desk. It's like drilled in. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to drop it. Thanks. I appreciate that. Any last words before we sign off today? I've got the bumping 80s music here because I am in a hyperwave, hypersynth mode. I've got a party coming up for my daughter who's turning 16 tonight, which, by the way, I wrote a dope murder mystery for all of her friends. She's got 13 people coming over. We're participating in a murder mystery. She wanted like a celebrity red carpet party, but she also wanted a murder mystery party because she wants to be like criminal justice journalist, which is like a weird niche thing that she's all into. So I basically wrote a D&D campaign, like a one shot that we're doing tonight, and she can't. Well, she's right outside the door. I'm not going to say who the killer was. I can type it into chat later. But essentially, two celebrities get at it, and then one of them dies, and it's going to be amazing. And yeah,
bro, I saw your wife just posted a picture of her 16th birthday cake on Facebook.
Yep.
And it's legit. It's freaking legit, dude. It looks great.
We don't go all out for all the parties. We did like for like 8 and 9, when you're like 8 or 9-year-old, and then it's kind of always just been like, I don't know, you can bring some friends over, but 16 and graduation, those are the ones we go all out for, and this is dope. And so, plus we got her a brand new iPhone. Actually, it kind of came free, but like that's what she got for her birthday. So. Love you, Grace. Have fun. Yeah, coolest dad. Look at that. Jen, coolest dad ever. Outside of Mark, probably. Coolest dad ever.
Nah, way cooler than me. And significantly more fit. Go ahead.
Just wrapping up on the synth wave, or synth music discussion, Stranger Things taught me that there are so many different types of synth music that I never knew existed. And I don't know who watches it with the subtitles on, but the subtitles in Stranger Things are actually kind of great.
Yep.
Because there's so many different scenes where it's like disturbing synth music plays.
Eerie synth music.
Yeah, heartfelt synth music plays. It just has all these descriptions for the various types of synth music and the tone that it's setting. So
totally.
I never knew there were so many different types of synths, but hey.
And whoever they have writing their soundtrack, I mean, the Stranger Things soundtrack has routinely become my sort of
freaking crap.
It's amazing.
So good.
Yeah, it's my work. It's like I'll do 20-minute bursts of work, and I'll just set a timer, and I'll do 20 minutes in that soundtrack and just get a million things done because I'm just like grinding. It's just like this. Feels good.
Parts of season 1, I have to say, reminded me of the Daft Punk score from Tron Legacy.
Yes.
So I don't know if there was some inspiration there, but
I don't know.
Obviously, it's very different from that.
And it also felt like it felt like the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, Social Network stuff as well. Like just this sort of like guttural, like industrial synthy. like it hits you like right in the sternum and makes you want to just. For me, it's work, but it makes you want to do things.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Everybody in the chat, thanks so much for joining us here on Roundtable. Jump into our Discord. Be part of the fam here at Lux. We love you all. We will see you next time. Until then, keep being Roundtable. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a...
We got to work on, we
Yeah.
got to come up with something for that. Yeah.
Until then, keep being Roundtable. We love you. Goodbye.